Betrayal, the one thing everyone fears, doesn't come from those who openly oppose us, but from the very people we once trusted without question. It could be a close friend who suddenly turns distant and cold, a lover who walks away without a word of explanation, or a colleague who once stood by your side but stabs you in the back when you least expect it. And what hurts the most isn't just the act of betrayal itself, but the shock, the disbelief when it happens. You never saw it coming. There were no warnings, or so you thought. But what if I told you the signs were always there? Subtle, quiet, but entirely visible if you were alert enough to see them. Carl Jung, a brilliant psychologist who explored the depths of the human subconscious, once said that betrayal is not a random accident, nor is it simply a cruel act. It is the result of a series of quiet psychological shifts. It emerges from the shadows of the human mind, where jealousy, insecurity, and unresolved inner conflicts dwell. Betrayal, therefore, is not something that just happens. It follows a pattern, a psychological script that plays out time and time again in close relationships. And once you understand its mechanism, you will no longer be the unsuspecting victim. You will no longer be shattered for trusting the wrong person. So why do the people we love have the capacity to hurt us so deeply? What happens within them? And is there a way to recognize the signs early, before the painful truth is revealed? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover might forever change how you see people, trust, and yourself. 1. Envy. The silent and dangerous root of betrayal. In every relationship, no matter how close, envy is a toxic seed that always lies in wait. Carl Jung, the master of depth psychology, once said that people feel envy when they see something they believe they lack in others. It could be success, confidence, meaningful connections, or inner peace. Envy doesn't always show itself through blatant hostility. On the contrary, it often hides behind seemingly harmless words laced with subtle barbs. Did you finally get that promotion after working so hard? They smile and say, "Wow, must have some good connections, huh?" You've been working on your health, transforming your appearance. They glance at you and scoff. Must have a lot of free time. Nothing better to do, I guess. At first you might laugh it off, thinking they're just joking. But if you pay attention, you'll notice a pattern. Those comments keep coming and rarely come from a place of genuine happiness for you. Envy clouds a person's ability to see you objectively. In their eyes, your success is no longer the result of hard work. It becomes a silent reminder of everything they haven't achieved. You, without meaning to, become a mirror reflecting their shortcomings, their unfulfilled desires. And because they can't bear to confront their inner struggles, they choose an easier path: blame, withdrawal, and sometimes even betrayal. What's heartbreaking is that this kind of betrayal doesn't always come from malice. Sometimes it comes from helplessness, a deep sense of inadequacy when watching someone else rise while they remain stuck. Once you understand this, you'll be less surprised when someone who once applauded your victories suddenly turns away, simply because your light made them feel smaller in the story they tell themselves. 2. Narcissistic betrayal. When you're just a pawn in their game. This kind of betrayal cuts the deepest, not because it's loud or dramatic, but because it's cold, calculated, and chillingly detached. Those with narcissistic traits often approach you with charm and allure. They say all the right things and make you feel special, seen, and prioritized. You think you've found a genuine friend, an ideal partner, or a trustworthy collaborator. But in truth, everything they present is a facade, carefully crafted to serve one purpose: their self-interest. They're not drawn to you for who you are, but for what you can offer them: status, money, connections, emotional support, or simply the thrill of being admired. When they need you, they're the first to show up, eager to help, listen, and shower you with praise. But when you need them, when you're vulnerable and seeking support, they suddenly become busy, distant, or disappear without a trace. Worse still, if an opportunity arises, they won't hesitate to abandon you, steal credit, or spread falsehoods just to protect their image. To the narcissist, every relationship is a transaction. Affection is a mask. Loyalty is a tool. And kindness, if it exists, only lasts as long as you're useful to them. If betraying you benefits them more than staying by your side, they'll choose betrayal, without hesitation or remorse. You might think, surely they once cared about me. But the painful truth is that someone like this never saw you as a whole person. You were a stepping stone, a pit stop, along the journey they'd scripted for themselves. And when you finally realize you've been used, the most devastating part isn't what they did. It's knowing you were never truly valued in the first place. The power play. When betrayal becomes a tool to keep you under control. Not all betrayal stems from envy or insecurity. Some betrayals arise from something more subtle, a deep-seated desire to control. Carl Jung once warned that many relationships that appear close on the surface are, in fact, battlegrounds for power, where one person constantly seeks to stay on top, while the other unknowingly becomes a pawn in their game. At first, they may seem incredibly supportive. They cheer your progress and praise your achievements, as long as you still depend on them. But the moment you begin to stand on your own, make your own decisions, build your confidence, and no longer rely on them to feel secure, they change. That support quickly turns into skepticism, criticism, or worse, quiet, calculated, and emotionally manipulative forms of betrayal. They won't attack you directly. Instead, they play emotional games designed to pull you back into their grasp. Guilt tripping. You used to ask for my advice on everything. What happened? Playing the victim. You've changed. You don't care like you used to. Creating drama. Small disagreements are blown out of proportion to make you question yourself. Backhanded comments. Disguised as feedback. Their words leave you doubting your worth. All of it is aimed at one thing: re-establishing control. To them, your independence is a threat, because it means they're losing influence and the power to shape your emotions, actions, and choices. And so, to protect their fragile ego, they choose betrayal, not because you've done something wrong, but because you're no longer easy to manipulate. Betrayal in these power-driven relationships doesn't scream. It shows up quietly, in the cooling of their gaze, the hollowing of their words, the shift from being a source of support to becoming a source of pressure. But once you see it for what it is, you'll understand. This kind of betrayal isn't meant to hurt you. It's meant to shrink you back into a smaller, more controllable version of yourself. 4. The manipulator's mask. When betrayal is a carefully laid strategy. Not every betrayal stems from repressed emotions or unhealed wounds. Some betrayals aren't born from weakness, but from cold, calculated planning, like a chess game in which you're merely a piece moved to serve someone else's endgame. Carl Jung once said that some people live their entire lives behind a mask, an image they carefully construct to hide their true nature and hidden motives. They know exactly when to say the right words and when to appear understanding, appreciative, and kind, not out of sincerity, but because they need something from you. They always show up at the right moment. When you're vulnerable, they comfort you. When you're lost, they offer guidance. When you succeed, they celebrate with pride, as if your joy were theirs too. But it only lasts as long as you serve a purpose. Once their goal is achieved, once your presence no longer benefits them, they withdraw, cold, indifferent, or worse, they turn on you, ready to hurt you if it helps protect their image or personal gain. Maybe you've loved someone like that. Someone who once called you everything, who made you believe you were the most precious thing in their life. And then one day, without conflict, without clear warning, they grew distant, cold, and finally walked away as if you'd never existed. Not because they were too heartbroken to say goodbye, but because they had never truly stayed. They were there only as long as you were useful, emotionally, financially, socially, or as a temporary escape. And when you no longer served as a beneficial anchor, the mask slipped off. This kind of betrayal doesn't just wound, it disorients. You're left asking, how did I not see it? But you're not to blame. The truth is, they were masterful in playing the part, flawless in their performance, so much so that doubting them felt impossible. But once you understand the nature of these masks, you begin to see people more clearly. You learn to tell the difference between genuine connection and well-timed performance. You begin to recognize who values you for who you are, and who's only drawn to what you bring. And when you develop the ability to see through these masks, you gain more than protection from future betrayal. You gain one of life's most powerful skills, seeing people not through their words or actions, but through the stillness in their eyes, where truth can never hide for long. 5. The shadow within. When betrayal is fueled by silent resentment. Betrayal is rarely a sudden act. It doesn't erupt in a moment of rage or surface in a lapse of weakness. Instead, it unfolds gradually, a quiet, psychological storm brewing over time, growing beneath the surface until it can no longer be contained. And finally, it explodes. Carl Jung, who dedicated his life to exploring the hidden realms of the human psyche, coined a haunting term: the shadow self, the inner darkness within us all. It's the part of our mind where we bury thoughts, emotions, and desires we're too ashamed to admit, simply because they don't align with the good image we try to uphold. Everyone has a shadow, but not everyone is aware of it. And when a person refuses to face it, to accept it, they begin to repress it, pushing it deeper into the subconscious, as if it doesn't exist. But what is repressed never truly disappears. It waits for a trigger. And that trigger might be you. When you begin to grow, when your career rises, your confidence blossoms, and your life becomes more fulfilled, it can unknowingly touch the raw, unhealed parts of another soul. You've done nothing wrong. You're simply living in alignment with your potential. But that very light can cast a long shadow on someone who hasn't made peace with their own. It could be a close friend who once stood by your side. When you struggled, they cheered for you. But as you begin to thrive, you start to feel a shift. They still smile, still congratulate you, but their eyes say something else. The warmth fades into coolness. The support becomes distance. Then, slowly, you start to hear the sarcasm and sense the subtle sabotage, without explanation. What's happening? Their shadow has awakened. Envy, insecurity, fear of being left behind. These emotions rise like a tide, but they lack the courage to face them directly. Instead of admitting, "I feel left out because you're moving forward and I'm not," they begin to distort the truth to protect their ego. They tell themselves, "You've changed," or "You're just showing off now." These narratives don't come from truth, but from a desperate need to self-soothe. Because if they don't blame you, they'd have to look inward. And that's a mirror they're not ready to face. And that's where betrayal begins. Not as a clear action, but a series of festering thoughts, a slow-building belief system warped by resentment. In this type of betrayal, not hatred drives them, but hidden weakness masked by self-defense. You were never their enemy. You simply became a mirror, reflecting what they were unwilling to acknowledge within themselves. And when you understand that, you'll stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" You'll see the truth. Some betrayals say nothing about your worth, but everything about the parts of themselves they haven't yet found the strength to accept. 6. Reflected shadows. When they see their darkness in you. Sometimes, betrayal doesn't happen because you've done something wrong. The reason can be paradoxical. You become a mirror reflecting the parts of themselves they're unwilling to face. You never speak ill of anyone, yet you're accused of gossiping. You're fiercely loyal, yet constantly questioned, doubted, suspected. You're humble, quiet, and never competing, yet labeled as jealous or petty. Why does this happen? Carl Jung called it the projection of the shadow, a defense mechanism where a person, unable to accept their dark traits, unconsciously assigns them to someone else. Instead of looking inward, they look outward. Instead of facing uncomfortable truths, they invent a villain to blame, to release their guilt, shame, or sense of inadequacy. You may have experienced this without even realizing it. A friend who constantly gossips suddenly accuses you of being disloyal. A partner with a wandering eye keeps checking your phone, suspecting you of infidelity. A colleague who quietly competes with everyone claims you are the one trying to prove yourself. The reality? They're not seeing you. They're seeing themselves, projected onto you. Psychologically, this is an unconscious defense. When guilt, envy, selfishness, or insecurity are too painful to admit, the brain redirects them outward. It's how they preserve the illusion that they are fine, that you are the problem. And so, you become a living mirror, accidentally forcing them to confront what they don't want to see. But instead of thanking you for the clarity, they distance themselves, or worse, betray you, to protect that fragile illusion. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And when someone cannot form a healthy relationship with their shadow, they look for a scapegoat. Tragically, that scapegoat is often you. Understanding this won't erase the pain of betrayal, but it frees you from blaming yourself. You'll realize you didn't reflect anything ugly. You simply revealed what they weren't ready to accept. And sometimes, even a small light of truth is enough to make an unprepared soul retreat into the dark. Betrayal isn't the end. It's the beginning of clarity. Betrayal leaves wounds, not just in the heart, but in how you view the world. It makes you doubt everything: love, loyalty, even your worth. You ask, what did I do wrong? Was I too naive? Should I have seen this coming? But in time, you'll see. Betrayal doesn't define who you are. It reveals who they are. Yes, you may lose a relationship, a friend, a partner, a confidant. But they lose something more valuable, someone loyal, kind, and devoted. And you? You simply lost someone who was never meant to walk the path ahead with you. Betrayal is not a full stop. It's an awakening. It tears down the veil, forcing you to see people. It teaches you to observe more, trust your intuition, and, most importantly, believe in actions over pretty words. You learn to protect your heart, not by building high walls, but by keeping your eyes open. You learn that not everyone who says, "I'm here for you," will stay. Not everyone who smiles truly wishes you well. But above all, you learn to let go, to release those who never valued your loyalty, those who only stayed for gain and vanished when you needed them most. Because the truth is, the ones who are meant for you, the good, honest, genuine ones, will never betray you. They'll choose to stay, not because they need something from you, but because they see your worth and honor it. And those are the people worth keeping.